There are places where the forest doesn't just surround you, it studies you. Welcome back to Dead Quiet. Tonight's stories come from rental cabins with extra keys no one mentioned, from forest trails where laughter circles you in the dark, from night shifts on empty highways where the wrong person decides you're worth following home. These aren't legends passed down through generations. These are things that happened to real people in the last few years, some as recently as 6 months ago. The kind of horror that doesn't announce itself with footsteps or broken branches. The kind that hides in routines, in unlocked doors, in the assumption that isolation means safety. You're about to hear from people who trusted the silence, who believed locked doors would hold, who thought being alone meant they were safe. They learned otherwise, and if stories like these pull you in the way they pull me in, stay close, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, because we keep going back to different mountains, different forests, different moments when someone realized the wilderness was paying attention. The Appalachians have been here longer than highways, longer than towns, longer than the people who named them. They've seen what we've forgotten, and in the deep places, in the hours when most people are asleep, something still moves between the trees. Something that watches, something that waits. So settle in, let the world outside fade. And remember, in the wild, silence is never empty. This first story comes from a man I'll call Mitchell. He's 28 now, works as a freelance photographer, and what happened to him 6 months ago in the mountains of North Carolina still makes him check every window and door before bed. Mitchell had been feeling burnt out. He'd spent the previous year grinding through commercial photography gigs, corporate headshots, wedding after wedding. The kind of work that pays the bills but drains your soul. He needed a reset, a chance to focus on his personal project, a photography series he'd been planning for years but never had time to execute. So when he found a rental cabin outside Boone, North Carolina, advertised as a secluded artist's retreat, it felt like perfect timing. 3 weeks. Just him, his cameras, and the Appalachian wilderness. The listing showed a charming 2-bedroom cabin surrounded by dense forest, a wide patio perfect for morning coffee, and most importantly, absolute isolation. The nearest neighbor was 2 miles away. Mitchell booked it immediately. The drive up was everything he'd hoped for. Winding mountain roads, fall colors just starting to show. That crisp mountain air that makes you feel like you can finally breathe. He arrived just before sunset, and the property was even better in person. The cabin sat in a small clearing, tall pines on all sides, a detached storage shed about 30 yards from the main house. The owner, an elderly woman named Patricia, met him there for check-in. She was friendly, warm, exactly the kind of person you'd expect to own a place like this. She walked him through the cabin, showed him how to work the fireplace, pointed out the hiking trails marked on a local map. As they finished the tour outside, Mitchell gestured toward the storage shed. "Is there anything in there I can use? Extra firewood or anything?" Patricia waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, don't worry about that old thing. It's locked. Just full of old furniture and junk I've been meaning to clear out for years. Everything you need is in the cabin." She smiled. "Enjoy your stay, Mitchell. This place is special. I think you'll do great work here." And with that, she drove off, leaving Mitchell alone with 3 weeks of solitude ahead of him. The first thing he noticed as her car disappeared down the gravel driveway was the silence. Not the kind of quiet you get in a suburban backyard. This was deep forest silence, the kind that feels almost physical. No traffic sounds, no neighbors mowing lawns, just wind through the pines and the occasional bird call. Mitchell loved it immediately. He spent the rest of that evening unpacking, setting up his equipment, making himself at home. As darkness fell, he stood on the patio with a beer, looking up at more stars than he'd seen in years. Yeah, he thought, this was exactly what he needed. The first 2 days were perfect. Mitchell fell into an easy rhythm. Wake up early, coffee on the patio, spend the morning editing photos from previous projects, afternoon hike to scout locations, evening shooting during golden hour. He was productive, focused, inspired. The isolation wasn't lonely. It was liberating. On the third day, everything changed. It was late afternoon, probably around 6 o'clock. The sun was getting low, casting that beautiful amber light through the trees. Mitchell was outside with his camera, taking some shots of the property itself, thinking he might use them for the project. He was composing a shot of the cabin when he noticed something odd. The storage shed door was slightly ajar. He lowered his camera, staring at it. Had it been open before? He didn't think so. Actually, he was certain it hadn't been. And Patricia had said it was locked, right? Full of old junk, locked up tight. Mitchell walked over to investigate. As he got closer, he could see the padlock was hanging open, not broken or cut, just unlocked, like someone had opened it with a key. His first thought was that Patricia must have stopped by. Maybe she needed to get something from the shed. But there were no fresh tire tracks in the gravel driveway, and he'd been outside most of the afternoon. He would have heard a car. Curious now, and slightly uneasy, Mitchell pulled the door open wider and peered inside. What he saw made his stomach drop. The shed wasn't full of old furniture and junk. Well, there was some old furniture pushed against the far wall, but the main space was set up like someone was living there. A camping cot with a sleeping bag, a propane heater, several days' worth of food supplies, canned goods, and bottled water stacked neatly in the corner, battery-powered lanterns, and on a small folding table, a pair of binoculars. The binoculars were pointed toward the cabin, specifically toward the rear bedroom window, the room where Mitchell had been sleeping. His heart started pounding. This wasn't Patricia's stuff. This was someone's living space. Someone had been staying here, watching the cabin. Mitchell pulled out his phone with shaking hands and started taking pictures. Evidence. He needed evidence. He photographed everything. The cot, the supplies, the binoculars, all of it. Then he backed out of the shed and immediately called Patricia. She answered on the third ring. "Mitchell, is everything okay?" "Patricia, I need you to be honest with me. Have you been to the property since I checked in?" "What? No, honey, I haven't." "Why? Is something wrong?" Mitchell's throat was tight. "The storage shed. You said it was locked with old furniture, right?" "Yes, that's right. I haven't opened that thing in months. Why?" "Because someone's been living in it. There's a cot, food, camping equipment, and binoculars pointed at the cabin." Silence on the other end, then barely a whisper. "What?" Mitchell told her everything he'd found. He could hear the shock in her voice, genuine confusion. She insisted she hadn't given anyone permission to use the property, hadn't been there herself. She said she'd drive up first thing in the morning. It was a 90-minute drive from her house, and she wanted to see this for herself. "Should I call the police?" Mitchell asked. "Yes," Patricia said immediately. "Yes, call them. I'll head up there right now, actually. I don't understand this." But Mitchell told her to wait until morning, when it was light out. He didn't want her driving mountain roads in the dark while upset. He'd lock himself in the cabin, he said. He'd be fine until morning. After hanging up, Mitchell did exactly what he'd planned. He went inside, locked every door and window, checked them twice, then pushed a heavy dresser against the bedroom door. He tried to tell himself he was overreacting. Maybe it was just a homeless person who'd found an unlocked shed. Maybe they were harmless. But those binoculars pointed right at his bedroom window. He didn't sleep much that night. Every sound outside made him jump. Wind rattling the windows sounded like footsteps. Branches scraping the roof sounded like someone trying to get in. Around 1 a.m., he heard something that made his blood run cold. Gravel crunching outside. Footsteps on the driveway. Mitchell crept to the window and carefully peeked through the curtain. There was a figure outside, moving around the property with a flashlight. He couldn't make out many details, just a silhouette. But it was definitely a person. And they were checking the cabin windows, trying the doors. Mitchell's hands were shaking as he dialed 911. The dispatcher answered, and he whispered urgently that someone was outside his rental cabin, trying to get in. She said she'd send a sheriff's deputy, but it would take at least 30 minutes. The cabin was remote, deep in the mountains. 30 minutes. Mitchell watched the figure move around outside. They tried the front door. Locked. They moved to the side windows. Also locked. Then they walked toward the storage shed and went inside. For 15 minutes, nothing. Mitchell waited by the window, heart hammering, phone in one hand and a kitchen knife in the other. He felt ridiculous with the knife, but it was all he had. Then, a sound that made his skin crawl. A soft knock on the cabin's back door. A male voice, calm and casual. "I know you called the cops. I just want my stuff from inside. Let me get my backpack and I'll leave." Mitchell stood frozen. The voice sounded so normal, so reasonable, but this person had been living in the shed, watching him sleep. The voice continued. "I'm not trying to scare you, man. That's my shed. I paid for it. Check with Patricia. Just let me grab my bag, and I'm gone." Paid for it? What did that mean? Was this person claiming they had some arrangement with Patricia? Mitchell's mind raced. None of this made sense. He moved closer to the door, staying to the side, and spoke through it. "The police are coming. You need to leave. Now." "Come on, don't be like that. I just need my backpack. It's right inside the door. You probably saw it." Mitchell hadn't seen a backpack. "You have 30 seconds to leave the property before I come out there armed." He wasn't armed, not really, but the person outside didn't know that. There was a pause, then, "All right, man. All right, I'm going." Mitchell heard footsteps moving away, quickly this time. Then silence. He stayed by the door, knife gripped in his sweaty hand, barely breathing. Minutes crawled by. When the sheriff's deputy finally arrived, lights flashing in the driveway, Mitchell had never been so relieved to see another human being. The deputy searched the property and the surrounding woods, but found no one. Mitchell showed him the storage shed. The deputy photographed everything, took a full statement, and seemed genuinely concerned, but not particularly surprised. "This is actually the third call we've gotten about this property," the deputy said, looking through the shed with his flashlight. "Different renters over the past few months, all reporting similar things. Someone's been living in this shed between guest stays." Mitchell felt sick. "And you haven't caught them?" "Haven't even gotten a good look at them. They're smart, whoever they are. They watch the booking schedule somehow, move in right after guests check in, leave before checkout." Patricia arrived about 20 minutes later, visibly shaken. She approached the shed like it might bite her, and when she saw what was inside, she actually started crying. "I had no idea. I swear to God, Mitchell, I had no idea." The deputy asked to see the padlock. Patricia pulled out her keyring, hands shaking, and showed him the only key she had for that lock. The deputy examined the lock itself. It showed clear signs of being picked, repeatedly. The metal around the keyhole was scratched and worn. "Whoever's doing this knows what they're doing," the deputy said. "They're picking the lock, using the space, then locking it back up when they leave." Patricia looked at Mitchell, tears on her face. "I'm so sorry. I'm closing the rental. I'm selling this place. I can't have this happen." But the deputy wasn't done. He'd found something else in the shed, tucked behind the camping supplies. A spiral notebook, the cheap kind you buy at a dollar store. Mitchell watched as the deputy flipped through it, his expression growing darker with each page. Finally, he looked up at Patricia and Mitchell. "You both need to see this." The notebook contained detailed notes about previous renters, different names, physical descriptions, daily routines, habits. One entry described a couple who'd stayed there in July. Brunette woman, blonde man, both late 20s. She runs every morning at 6:15. He sleeps until 8. They leave the patio door unlocked when they have coffee outside. Left Thursday morning. Another entry from August. Solo male, early 40s, writer type, works on laptop in living room until midnight. Takes sleeping pills. Very heavy sleeper. Left Sunday. Page after page of this. Different people, different dates. All watched, all catalogued. Then Mitchell saw the entry about himself. Photographer, late 20s, works late, sleeps in rear bedroom. Takes morning coffee on patio at 7 a.m. Leaves patio door unlocked during this time. Went hiking Tuesday afternoon, 2 to 6 p.m. Doesn't lock bedroom window. Showers around 10 p.m. Sleeps heavy. Doesn't wake to small sounds. Mitchell felt like he was going to throw up. He'd been there 3 days. This person had been watching him for 3 days, learning his patterns, noting his vulnerabilities. The deputy kept flipping pages. Near the back of the notebook, he found something even more disturbing. A ranking system. Stars next to certain entries. The couple from July had 2 stars. The writer from August had 1 star. Mitchell's entry had 3 stars and a note. Potential. Potential for what? The deputy didn't say it out loud, but they were all thinking it. Then Patricia gasped. She was looking at the final page of the notebook. At the bottom, in the same handwriting as all the entries, was a simple list of dates. Future dates. They corresponded exactly to upcoming reservations on her Airbnb calendar. "He has access to my bookings," she whispered. "He knows when people are coming. He knows how long they're staying." The deputy took the notebook as evidence. He also found, hidden under the camping cot, an SD card. He couldn't view it there, but he said he'd have it examined and would be in touch. Patricia cancelled Mitchell's reservation and refunded him fully. She insisted on putting him up in a hotel in Boone for the night. She'd pay for it. She was so sorry, so incredibly sorry. Mitchell packed his things and left that same morning. The next week, the deputy called him. They'd examined the SD card. What they found made Mitchell's skin crawl. Hundreds of photos, different renters over several months, all taken through the cabin windows, people sleeping, people in the bathroom, the shower, people getting dressed, all photographed without their knowledge. Mitchell's photos were there too. Him sleeping in the bedroom, him working on his laptop, him making breakfast, all taken over those 3 days, taken from outside looking in. But the most disturbing photo was the last one on the SD card. It was Mitchell, asleep in bed, taken the night before he discovered the shed. The timestamp read 3:47 a.m. The person had been standing outside his bedroom window at almost 4 in the morning, watching him sleep, photographing him. That could have been the last night they just watched, the deputy had said carefully. Based on the notebook entries and patterns, he believed this person was working up to something more direct. Breaking that 3-star rating, the potential note, it suggested escalation. The police investigation was ongoing, but the suspect was never identified. Patricia sold the property within a month, to a developer who tore down the cabin and shed. The land is now part of a protected forest reserve. No more rentals, no more guests. Mitchell never went back to the Appalachian Mountains for photography work. He still freelances, still shoots, but he won't take assignments that require staying in remote locations. And here's the detail that still haunts him. A week after he left Boone, after he was back home in Charlotte, he received an email. The address was a random string of letters and numbers, clearly a burner account. The subject line read, "You're the one who got away." The body of the email contained a single attachment, a photo. It was Mitchell, asleep in the cabin bed, taken the night before he found the shed. The same photo that had been on the SD card, but this version had been edited. Red circle drawn around his sleeping face. Text overlay. 3 stars. Next time. Mitchell immediately forwarded it to the police. They traced the email to a public library computer in Tennessee, 2 hours from Boone. By the time they got there, the digital trail was cold. Whoever sent it had used the library's guest computer, no login required, and was long gone. "I still check my windows every night before bed," Mitchell told me when he shared this story. "Every single one. I test the locks twice, sometimes 3 times, and I still wonder, is he watching someone else right now? Has he found a new shed, a new cabin, new guests who have no idea he's there?" Mitchell paused before adding, "The worst part isn't even what happened. It's knowing that for 3 days, I felt safe. I felt alone. I thought I was having this peaceful retreat in the mountains, but I wasn't alone. Not for a single moment. He was always there, just outside the window, watching me live my life. And I never knew, not until he wanted me to know." This next story comes from 2 sisters, Emma and Claire. Emma was 26 when this happened. Claire was 29. What they experienced last September on the Appalachian Trail in Virginia changed both of their lives in ways they're still processing. The 2 of them had always been close growing up. Their father had been an outdoorsman, the kind of dad who believed the best classroom was the wilderness. From the time they were little girls, he'd taken them camping, hiking, teaching them how to read trails, how to respect nature, how to stay safe in the backcountry. He died 3 years ago. Heart attack, sudden, no warning. Both sisters took it hard, but Claire especially. She'd been going through a rough patch even before his death. Her marriage falling apart, career stress building up. When their father died, something in Claire broke. She went through the motions of life, worked, came home, barely spoke. Emma watched her sister disappear into herself and didn't know how to pull her back. Then, almost a year after their father's death, Emma had an idea. The Appalachian Trail, their dad's favorite place in the world. He'd hiked sections of it over the years, always said he'd complete the whole thing someday. Maybe, Emma thought, maybe if she and Claire did a section together, it would help. A way to feel close to him again. A way to heal. It took some convincing, but Claire finally agreed. They planned a 4-day backpacking trip for September. The Virginia section, near Shenandoah National Park. Moderate difficulty, beautiful scenery, and it was a stretch their father had hiked with them when they were teenagers. Perfect. They drove up on a Thursday morning, both of them taking time off work. The weather was ideal, that perfect early fall temperature, where you need a light jacket in the morning, but warm up as you hike. The leaves were just starting to turn, splashes of red and gold against the green. Those first 2 days were everything Emma had hoped for. Claire actually smiled. They talked about memories with their dad, shared stories, laughed. At night, they They'd camp near other hikers, share trail stories, feel part of that community their father had loved so much. On day 3, they made a decision that changed everything. There was a side trail, less traveled, that led to a spot their father had told them about years ago. A secluded camping area near a ridge with views he'd described as spiritual. Neither of them had been there before. It was one of those places he'd always meant to take them, but never got the chance. "Let's do it," Claire said that morning. "For Dad." So they left the main trail and headed down the less traveled path. Within an hour, they could feel the difference. The main trail had regular foot traffic, the sense that civilization wasn't far away. This side trail felt wilder, older. The forest closed in around them, dense and quiet. They reached the camping spot around 6 in the evening, and their father had been right. It was beautiful. A small clearing on a ridge, with views stretching for miles. Mountains layered in the distance, fading to blue. It felt sacred. They set up camp with practiced efficiency. Years of hiking with their dad had taught them well. Tent up, bear bag hung, camp stove ready. By 8:30, they'd eaten dinner and were sitting on a fallen log, watching the last light fade from the sky. That's when they heard it, whistling. Someone in the distance, whistling a tune. At first, it didn't seem strange. Other hikers, maybe, setting up their own camp. The whistling was pretty far off, maybe 100 yards to the north. It was a melody, slow and deliberate, kind of haunting, actually. Emma called out, "Hello? You folks okay out there?" The whistling stopped immediately. They waited. No response. Just forest silence. Emma and Claire exchanged looks. "Maybe they didn't hear you," Claire suggested. 5 minutes passed. They were about to go into their tent when the whistling started again. But this time, it was coming from the south, the opposite direction. Both sisters stood up, suddenly alert. "That's weird," Emma said. "How did they get over there so fast?" Claire was staring into the dark woods. "That's the same tune, the same exact melody." They listened. She was right. It was the same slow, haunting whistle, note for note identical to before. Emma called out again, louder this time. "Do you need help? Are you lost?" The whistling stopped mid-note, complete silence. Then, after maybe 30 seconds, it started again, this time from the east. Still the same distance away, still the same tune. "Okay, that's not normal," Emma said, her voice tight. Claire grabbed Emma's arm. "Em, I know that song. That's the tune Dad used to whistle. Remember? When we were kids, on hikes, he'd whistle that old folk song." Emma's stomach dropped because Claire was right. Their father had a favorite folk tune, something his own father had taught him. He'd whistle it on trails, a kind of happy hiking rhythm. Emma hadn't consciously recognized it until Claire said it, but now she couldn't unhear it. Someone out there in the woods was whistling their dead father's song. "It's just a coincidence," Emma said, trying to keep her voice steady. "It's just an old folk song. Lots of people know it." But even as she said it, she didn't believe it, because the tune wasn't common. It was obscure, a regional thing their grandfather had learned in rural Appalachia decades ago. 10 p.m. rolled around. The whistling continued, moving around their camp in a pattern. North, then east, then south, then west, then back to north again. Like someone was walking a circle around them, staying the exact same distance away, just whistling. They retreated to their tent. Emma grabbed the bear spray. Claire grabbed her hiking pole. Neither of them had weapons beyond that. Their dad had taught them that if you respect the wilderness, It respects you back. Violence was a last resort, but this didn't feel like wilderness. This felt like something else. Around midnight, the whistling was joined by footsteps, heavy boots on fallen leaves, crunching in rhythm with the tune, still circling, still maintaining that 100-yard distance. Emma unzipped the tent entrance and shouted into the darkness, "We're armed. Identify yourself or we're calling for help." The footsteps stopped. The whistling continued for a few more bars, then stopped mid-phrase. Dead silence. Both sisters sat in the tent, hearts pounding, waiting. Minutes passed. Nothing. Then Claire grabbed Emma's arm so hard it hurt. "Listen," she whispered. The whistling had started again, but this time it sounded like it was coming from above them, from the trees. Emma felt her skin break out in goosebumps. "That's impossible," she breathed. But they both heard it. The same tune, the same slow melody, but now it seemed to be coming from directly overhead, like someone was perched in the branches above their tent. Claire was shaking. "Em, that's Dad's song. Someone's up in the trees whistling Dad's song." "It's not Dad," Emma said firmly, trying to be the strong one, even though terror was clawing at her chest. "I know it's not Dad." Claire's voice was rising toward panic. "But who else would know that song? Who else would—" She stopped mid-sentence. The whistling had stopped. Suddenly, mid-note again, like someone had been cut off. For 30 seconds, nothing. Just two sisters holding their breath in a tent in the middle of nowhere. Then they heard it. A man's laughter. Deep, cruel laughter that sounded like it was mocking them. And it was moving, circling them again. North, east, south, west. The same pattern as the whistling. Emma finally pulled out her phone. No service. They were too deep in the mountains. She'd known this before they came. Had told herself it didn't matter because they were experienced hikers. Now she felt that lack of connection like a physical weight. "We stay here until sunrise," Emma said, trying to sound confident. "We stay put, stay alert, and at first light we pack up and get back to the main trail." Claire nodded, but her eyes were wide with fear. "Em, I keep thinking, what if it is Dad somehow? What if he's trying to tell us something?" "Claire, stop. Dad is gone. That's not him. That's someone messing with us, and we're not going to give them the satisfaction of freaking out." But Emma wasn't as sure as she sounded, because that laughter circling them in the dark felt intentional, felt targeted, like whoever was out there knew exactly how to get under their skin. The laughter continued for hours. Sometimes it would stop, and they'd have 10, maybe 15 minutes of silence. Just when they'd start to hope it was over, it would start again. Different direction, same cruel, mocking tone. Around 4:45 a.m., when the sky was just starting to lighten from black to deep blue, the laughter stopped mid-cackle. Complete silence. Emma and Claire waited, listening so hard their ears rang. Nothing. At 5:30, with enough light to see by, they made their decision. Pack up, get out, move fast. They worked quickly, quietly, shoving gear into packs, not bothering with their usual organization. Just get everything together and go. Claire stepped outside the tent first. She was rolling up her sleeping bag when she saw it. "Em," she said, her voice strange. "Come here." Outside the tent entrance, arranged in a careful stack, were stones. 5 of them, each about the size of a fist, balanced in a specific pattern. Emma stared at it. "What the hell?" "That's Dad's trail marker," Claire whispered. "Remember, he invented that pattern, used to leave them for us on hikes when we were kids, so we'd know he'd been that way." Emma's mouth went dry. Their father had created his own trail marker system, a specific arrangement of stones that he'd use as a game when they were young. He'd hide them on trails, and the girls would try to spot them. But that was years ago, and he was dead. "Someone's messing with us," Emma said. "Someone who knew Dad, or researched us, or—" "Look at the stones," Claire interrupted, her voice shaking. Emma knelt down. The stones were cold, covered in morning dew like they'd been there all night, but there were no footprints around them. The ground was soft from recent rain. There should have been prints. Then Emma noticed something carved into the tree trunk right next to their tent. Fresh carving, the sap still wet and sticky. It was musical notation, the notes written in sequence. The exact same folk tune they'd been hearing all night. And below the notes, carved in rough letters, "Not your father." Emma felt her blood turn to ice. "We're leaving," she said. "Now!" They grabbed their packs, not bothering to properly stow anything, and started moving. They didn't head back to the side trail. They bushwhacked, straight toward where Emma's compass said the main trail should be. Behind them, the whistling started again. They ran. For 2 hours they crashed through the forest, jumping over logs, pushing through brush, not following any trail, just moving as fast as they could toward civilization. The whistling followed them, sometimes distant, sometimes so close it sounded like whoever it was right behind them. Claire was crying as she ran. Emma had her hand, pulling her along, refusing to let go. Finally, blessedly, they burst out onto a Forest Service road, pavement, civilization. A park ranger truck was parked at a small turnaround. The ranger, a woman in her 50s, was checking trail markers. When she saw Emma and Claire explode from the tree line, clearly terrified, she immediately ran to them. "What happened? Are you hurt?" Emma couldn't speak at first, gasping for breath. Claire was bent over, hands on her knees, sobbing. The ranger got them water, helped them sit down. "Take your time. Tell me what happened." Emma told her everything. The camping spot, the whistling, the circling, the laughter, the stones, the carving. The ranger's face went pale. "Where exactly did you camp?" "The ridge spot off the Mill Creek side trail. Our dad told us about it." The ranger actually took a step back. "You camped at Whispering Ridge?" We didn't know it had a name." The ranger pulled out her radio, called something in that Emma didn't fully catch. Then she looked at both of them with an expression Emma would never forget. Pity mixed with relief. "You two are lucky to be alive. That area has 9 missing persons reports over the past 15 years. All of them went missing after reporting strange whistling that followed them." Emma felt the world tilt. "What?" 3 bodies were eventually found, miles apart. All showed signs of being chased through the forest for hours before they died from exposure or exhaustion. One of them had carved the word "run" into a tree before they collapsed. Claire made a choking sound. The ranger continued, her voice gentle but firm. "There's something in those woods. We don't know what. Some people say it's just a person, someone who lives out there and terrorizes hikers. Others think it's something else. We've tried to patrol that area, tried to catch whoever or whatever it is, but nothing. It's like the forest swallows them." "Why isn't that area closed?" Emma demanded, anger cutting through her fear. "It's not technically in our jurisdiction. It's a weird boundary issue between state and federal land. We can't legally restrict access. All we can do is discourage people from camping there." The ranger drove them back to their car at the main trailhead. As they drove, Emma looked back through the rear window, at the tree line where they'd emerged. There was a figure standing there, too far away to make out features, but she could see them, just standing, watching the truck drive away. And as the truck rounded a bend, the figure raised one hand and waved. Emma swears to this day that even through the closed windows, even over the sound of the truck's engine, she heard it. That slow, haunting whistle. Claire heard it too. She grabbed Emma's hand and didn't let go until they were 30 miles down the highway. Neither of them has returned to the Appalachian Trail. They've done other hikes, other trails out west, up in the Rockies. But not Appalachia, not Virginia, never again. Claire still has nightmares about that tune. She'll wake up in her Chicago apartment, hundreds of miles from those mountains, and swear she hears whistling outside her bedroom window. Sometimes I wonder, Emma told me, if we were supposed to die out there, if we only got away because we ran in the opposite direction everyone else ran. Or maybe it was dumb luck. Or maybe... She paused. Maybe, whatever it was, didn't want us. Maybe it just wanted to scare us. To remind us that those mountains are older than we can understand, and there are things in them we're not supposed to find. She was quiet for a moment, then added, "The worst part. I still don't know what it was. Was it human? Was it something else? And that carving on the tree, not your father. How did it know? How did it know about our dad, about that song, about what would hurt us most?" Emma doesn't have an answer. Neither does Claire. All they know is that something lives in those mountains, something that whistles in the dark. And if you hear it, you should run. Don't try to identify it. Don't try to understand it. Just run and don't look back. What I'm about to tell you happened to a woman named Jenna. She was 23 at the time, putting herself through college by working 2 jobs. This was 4 years ago, and even now, she won't drive alone at night. Won't even consider it. Jenna grew up in West Virginia, deep in Appalachian coal country. Her family didn't have much, so when she got into college, she knew she'd be paying for it herself. She worked days at a campus library and nights at a roadside diner off Highway 48. The diner job paid better, especially with tips from the truckers who'd stop in during long hauls. The place was called Mountain View Diner, though there wasn't much of a view at night. Just a small building with a neon sign, sitting alone at a highway junction, surrounded by dark mountains and dense forest. It served the basics: coffee, burgers, breakfast all day, pie that wasn't half bad. Jenna's shift was 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. She worked it 3 nights a week, Wednesday through Friday. It was usually her and Marcus, the cook, a 45-year-old guy who'd worked there for 15 years. He was protective of Jenna, kind of a father figure. The actual manager would pop in occasionally, but mostly left them to run things. The job was fine, really. Sure, it was isolated, and the drive home was a little spooky, 25 minutes of winding mountain roads with 0 cell service for a long stretch. But Jenna had grown up in these mountains. She knew how to handle herself. Her father had made sure she carried pepper spray, and she kept it on her keychain at all times. Most nights followed a pattern. Truckers would come and go, some regulars who knew Jenna by name, some new faces passing through. There'd be a rush around midnight when a couple of routes converged. Then it would slow down after 2 a.m. By 3:30, they'd be cleaning up, ready to close at 4. That Wednesday night started normal enough. A few regulars, some new faces, steady business, nothing unusual. Then, around 11:45 p.m., he walked in. Jenna noticed him immediately because he didn't fit the usual profile. Most customers were truckers in work clothes or occasional locals in jeans and flannels. This guy was different, late 30s, clean cut, wearing business casual clothes, pressed khakis, a button-down shirt, like he'd just left an office, which was weird because there weren't any offices around here, not for miles. He chose a stool at the counter and gave Jenna a friendly smile. "Coffee, please. Black." She poured him a cup, making small talk the way she did with everyone. "Long drive?" "You could say that," he replied. "I'm looking at some property in the area, thinking about developing some mountain retreats." Jenna nodded politely. Developers came through sometimes, looking at cheap land. "Well, the mountains are beautiful. Good luck with that." "Thanks. I'm Rowan, by the way." He extended his hand. Jenna hesitated for just a second before shaking it quickly. Something about him felt off, but she couldn't pinpoint what. "Nice to meet you," she said, not offering her own name. She'd learned that trick early. Some guys took a name as an invitation. Rowan sipped his coffee slowly, watching her work. Not in an overtly creepy way, just attentive, like he was studying her. After about 10 minutes, he asked, "So, what time do you get off?" There it was, the question that always made Jenna's guard go up. She lied smoothly, like she always did. 6 a.m., long shift." "Wow, that is long. You must be tired." "I'm used to it," she said, already turning to attend to another customer who'd just walked in. But she could feel Rowan's eyes on her, watching. By 12:30, he'd ordered a second coffee. He wasn't eating, wasn't really doing anything except sitting there, occasionally checking his phone, but mostly watching Jenna move around the diner. She started to get genuinely uncomfortable. When she went back to the kitchen to grab an order, she pulled Marcus aside. "That guy at the counter is giving me weird vibes," she said quietly. Marcus glanced through the serving window. "Want me to say something?" "No, not yet. Just keep an eye out, okay?" "Always do, kid." Around 1:15, Rowan finally paid. He left a generous tip, $20 on a $6 tab, and gave Jenna another one of those smiles. "Have a good night. It was nice meeting you." "You too," Jenna said, watching as he walked out the door. Through the window, she saw him get into a dark sedan, something generic, a Honda or Toyota, she couldn't tell which. He started the car and drove off toward the highway. Jenna felt a wave of relief. See? Nothing. Just a weird guy having coffee. She'd dealt with way worse. The next hour was quiet. A trucker came in for a full breakfast, sat at a booth, and ate while reading on his phone. A couple stopped in for coffee, looking exhausted from a long drive. Normal stuff. Around 1:40, Jenna was refilling the trucker's coffee when she happened to glance out the window toward the parking lot. Her heart stopped. Rowan's sedan was back, parked at the far edge of the lot, away from the building lights, in the darkness. The car was dark, engine off, just sitting there. Jenna immediately went to Marcus. "He's back. The guy from before. He's parked in the lot, just sitting there in his car." Marcus didn't hesitate. He untied his apron and headed for the door. "I'll handle this." Jenna watched through the window as Marcus walked toward the sedan. The moment Marcus got close, the car's engine started. Headlights came on, and Rowan drove away, not fast, but deliberately, pulling out onto the highway and disappearing. Marcus came back inside, his jaw tight. "Got a partial plate. VX something. Couldn't see the rest in the dark." He looked at Jenna seriously. "I'm following you home tonight. All the way to your door." "Marcus, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." That wasn't normal. Guy like that doesn't just wait in the parking lot for an hour and a half unless he's planning something. Jenna wanted to argue, but honestly, she was grateful. The drive home suddenly felt a lot more threatening. Business was dead after 2:30. They had one more customer come in, and that's when things got even stranger. It was a woman, probably mid-50s, wearing a worn jacket and driving an old pickup. She came in, asked for water, and sat at a booth near the window. Didn't order food, didn't seem interested in anything except looking out at the parking lot. When Jenna brought her the water, the woman leaned in close and spoke quietly, urgently. "That man who was in here earlier, the one in the nice clothes, he's parked on the access road, just past the tree line. I saw him when I drove in. His lights are off, but he's there, waiting." Jenna felt ice flood her veins. "Are you sure?" The woman nodded. "This happened to my niece 2 years ago. Different diner, same highway. She didn't make it home." Before Jenna could respond, the woman stood up, left $1 on the table, and walked out quickly. She got in her truck and drove away, not toward the access road, but back the way she'd come. Jenna stood there, shaking. She didn't know what to make of that. Was the woman crazy, or was she genuinely trying to warn her? Marcus came out from the kitchen. What did she want? Jenna told him, every word. Marcus's expression went dark. "That's it. We're calling the cops." The diner had a landline, old-fashioned but reliable. Jenna called the non-emergency number and explained the situation. A man had been watching her, followed her to work, was now apparently waiting on a side road. The dispatcher said she'd send a deputy, but it would take about 45 minutes. The nearest sheriff's office was in the next county over, and deputies were spread thin. 45 minutes. Jenna looked at the clock. 2:40 a.m. Her shift technically ended at 4, but there were no more customers. They could close early. She and Marcus made a plan. They'd close up, walk out together, make sure both their vehicles started. Marcus would follow Jenna the entire way home, staying close, high beams on, so she could see him in her rearview mirror. If anything happened, she'd flash her brake lights 3 times in quick succession. That would be the signal for Marcus to call 911. At 4:10 a.m., they locked up. The parking lot was empty except for their 2 vehicles, Jenna's sedan and Marcus's old pickup truck. No sign of Rowan's car anywhere. Maybe he'd left. Maybe that woman had been mistaken. Maybe Jenna was overreacting. But as Marcus walked her to her car, he said quietly, "Trust your gut, Jenna. Always trust your gut." They got in their vehicles. Jenna started her car, relief flooding through her when the engine turned over smoothly. Marcus pulled his truck right up behind her, close enough that his headlights filled her back windshield. They pulled out onto the highway. Jenna's route took her south for about 7 minutes. Then she'd turn off onto a smaller county road that led through the mountains to her apartment. The first 7 minutes were fine. Just her and Marcus. No other cars. The road was winding but familiar, cutting through dense forest on both sides. Then she made the turn onto County Road 16, and in her rearview mirror, she saw a third set of headlights appear. A car had pulled out behind Marcus, following them. Jenna's hands tightened on the steering wheel. It could be anyone, she told herself. Just another car going the same direction, but the car maintained the exact same distance behind Marcus. Not closing in, not falling back. Just following. They were entering the dead zone now, the 18-minute stretch of road where cell phones didn't work. Dense forest on both sides. No houses, no businesses. Just miles of wilderness. The car behind Marcus suddenly accelerated. Jenna watched in her rearview mirror, horror building, as the sedan pulled alongside Marcus's truck. She couldn't see the driver, but she could see the car's silhouette. It looked like Rowan's sedan. The sedan swerved toward Marcus's truck, trying to force him off the road. Marcus swerved to avoid it, his truck weaving, but maintaining control. The sedan dropped back, then accelerated again, and rammed Marcus's rear bumper. The sound of the impact echoed through Jenna's open window. She saw Marcus's truck fishtail, tires screeching, but he recovered. Marcus was flashing his lights at her frantically. Their signal. "Don't stop. Get home. Call police." Jenna's foot slammed down on the accelerator. Her sedan leapt forward, engine roaring. She took the mountain curves faster than she ever had, tires squealing on hairpin turns. In her mirror, she saw Marcus brake check the sedan, forcing it to slow down or crash. He was buying her time, putting himself at risk to get her away. Jenna's eyes were filling with tears, but she kept driving. Her turnoff was coming up, the road that led to her apartment complex. But then she had a thought that made her blood run cold. What if Rowan knew where she lived? He'd been watching her, following her. He might have followed her home on previous nights without her knowing. If she went home, she'd be leading him right to her door. So, in a split second, Jenna made a decision. She passed her turnoff and kept driving. A quarter-mile ahead was the driveway to her neighbor's house. Tom and Linda, an elderly couple, former Marines. Tom had guns, and he was protective of the neighborhood. Jenna slammed on her brakes, tires screaming, and whipped into Tom and Linda's driveway. She laid on her horn, a continuous blast, and jumped out of her car screaming, "Help! Someone's chasing me! Help!" Lights came on in the house. Within seconds, Tom was at the door with a shotgun, Linda right behind him with a phone. Jenna was hysterical, words tumbling out. Tom, bless him, didn't ask questions. He told Linda to call 911 and walked out onto the driveway with the shotgun raised, standing between Jenna and the road. 5 minutes later, Marcus's truck came around the bend, headlights illuminating them. He pulled in fast, truck damaged but still running. He turned around. Marcus gasped, getting out. "That sedan. When you pulled in here, it must have realized you didn't go home. It turned around and went back the other way." Police arrived 20 minutes later, took statements, examined Marcus's damaged truck, checked Tom's security camera. The camera had caught Jenna's arrival, her car screeching into the driveway, but no sedan had followed her to this property. Rowan must have turned around before getting to Tom's place. The investigation moved fast. Diner security footage clearly showed Rowan, and they got a clear shot of his license plate. The plate came back stolen. It was registered to a car that had been reported missing in Kentucky 3 days earlier. The sedan itself was found 2 days later, abandoned in a rest stop 80 miles away. It had been wiped clean. No prints, no DNA, nothing. Rowan's real identity was never discovered. The face on the security footage didn't match anyone in their system. Either he'd never been arrested before, or he'd done something to his appearance. But here's the thing that still haunts Jenna. That woman who'd come into the diner, the one who'd warned her about Rowan waiting on the access road, the one who'd mentioned her niece. Police tried to find her. They reviewed the footage, got a description of her truck, put out an appeal for her to come forward as a witness. Nothing. No one matching her description owned a truck like that in the area. No one came forward. It was like she'd never existed. Jenna has a theory, one she knows sounds crazy. "Sometimes I wonder if she was even real," Jenna told me. "I mean, I saw her. I talked to her. But so did Marcus, right? Except when I asked him about her later, really asked him to describe her, he couldn't. He remembered a woman coming in, but not what she looked like." Jenna paused, then continued. "I think something was trying to warn me. I don't know if it was a person, or a ghost, or just something. But if that woman hadn't shown up, if she hadn't said what she said, I might not have been as cautious. I might have thought Rowan had left. I might have driven home alone." The police think Rowan was part of something bigger. They found patterns of similar incidents up and down that highway over several years. Women working night shifts, being followed, a few who went missing. The cases were never officially connected because they spanned multiple jurisdictions, but when you laid them out, the pattern was clear. Jenna quit the diner that same week. She found a job on campus, day shift, lots of people around. She graduated the following year and moved to Richmond, Virginia. She works as a librarian now, drives a different car, and has Tom's phone number saved under emergency. I learned something that night, she said. Trust your gut. If someone makes you uncomfortable, there's a reason. Your instinct is picking up on something your conscious mind hasn't recognized yet. And sometimes warnings come from places we can't explain. I don't know who that woman was, but she saved my life. I'm sure of it. Jenna still won't drive alone at night. Even in Richmond, with streetlights and traffic, she won't do it. If she has to be out after dark, she gets an Uber or asks a friend. Because I know he's out there somewhere, she said quietly. Rowan, or whatever his real name is. He's out there, doing this to someone else. And I hope they get the same warning I got. I hope someone shows up to tell them to run. The final story tonight comes from a woman named Olivia. She's 34, works as a travel nurse, and what happened to her 8 months ago in the Smoky Mountains has left her unable to stay in hotels or vacation rentals. She can't shake the feeling that someone is always watching. Olivia had been working brutal hospital rotations for over a year. COVID had hit the healthcare system hard, and as a travel nurse, she'd been bouncing between understaffed facilities, pulling double shifts, watching people die alone. She was burned out in a way that went deeper than exhaustion. It was in her bones, in her soul. So when her contract ended, and she had a month before her next assignment, she made a decision. She was going to rent a cabin somewhere isolated, somewhere beautiful, and she was going to do nothing but rest. Her job was fully remote for administrative work during this gap, so she could technically work from anywhere. She found the perfect place on VRBO, a 3-bedroom cabin in the Smoky Mountains, just 15 minutes outside Gatlinburg, Tennessee. The listing showed a gorgeous modern interior, a huge deck, a private hot tub, and the kicker, complete isolation. The cabin was tucked deep in the woods. No visible neighbors, surrounded by Appalachian forest. The reviews were glowing. Perfect getaway. Owner very responsive. Felt like heaven. Olivia booked it for a full month. The property owner, a guy named Michael, communicated only through the VRBO app, but he was responsive, answered all her questions quickly, seemed professional. Check-in was easy. A lockbox code, no need to meet in person, which Olivia appreciated. She didn't want to deal with people. She wanted solitude. When she arrived on a Saturday afternoon, the cabin was exactly as advertised. Clean, modern, well-stocked kitchen, fast Wi-Fi. Perfect. There was a welcome binder on the kitchen counter with all the usual info, Wi-Fi password, emergency contacts, local restaurant menus. One page caught Olivia's attention. It was titled Property Maintenance and read, "Your comfort and safety are our top priorities. Our handyman Gary checks the property weekly to ensure everything is working properly. He has a key for emergency repairs. Gary is very quiet and respectful of guest privacy. You probably won't even know he's been there. If you need anything repaired, you can contact him directly at the number below." Olivia felt a small twinge of discomfort. She didn't love the idea of someone having a key to the place while she was staying there. But she reasoned it was probably standard for rental properties, and if Gary was only coming weekly and she'd be here for a month, she'd maybe see him once or twice. No big deal. That first week was exactly what she needed. Olivia slept in, hiked easy trails, sat in the hot tub under the stars, worked a few hours a day on her laptop. She felt her nervous system slowly starting to calm down. The cabin was peaceful. The forest was healing. She saw no sign of Gary or anyone else. On day 9, everything changed. Olivia had planned a longer day hike. She left around 8 in the morning, packed a lunch, and didn't get back until about 5 in the evening. She was tired, but happy, feeling the best she'd felt in months. But when she walked into the cabin, something felt off. She couldn't immediately identify what it was. Nothing was obviously out of place, but she had that prickling sensation on the back of her neck, that instinct that something wasn't right. She walked through the cabin slowly. Living room looked normal. Kitchen looked... Wait. There was a coffee mug in the sink. Olivia stopped, staring at it. She knew, absolutely knew, that she had loaded her morning coffee mug into the dishwasher before leaving. She'd run the dishwasher. She'd heard it running as she walked out the door. So, where did this mug come from? She checked the dishwasher. Clean dishes, including her mug from this morning. This was a different mug, one from the cabin's collection, and it had been used. There were coffee residue rings inside. Olivia's heart started beating faster. Had Gary come by? But the welcome binder said he only checked weekly, and it had only been 9 days since she'd arrived. And why would he make coffee? She moved through the rest of the cabin. In the living room, the throw blanket on the couch was folded differently than she'd left it. She was certain of it. She'd left it draped over the arm. Now it was folded in thirds on the seat. This could all be in her head, she told herself. Stress, burnout, paranoia. Maybe she was misremembering. She tried to push it out of her mind, but that night she barely slept. 2 days later, day 11, she went on another hike. This time, she was only gone from about 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. When she returned, the wrongness was undeniable. In the bathroom, the hand towel was damp. She had specifically used a different towel that morning, and it was still hanging where she'd left it, dry. This towel was wet, like someone had washed their hands recently. In the kitchen pantry, a box of crackers was open. Olivia knew she hadn't opened it yet because she'd been working her way through a different box first. Someone had been in the cabin while she was gone. But who and how? Olivia checked every window and door, all locked, no signs of forced entry. The only explanation was that someone had a key. Gary. It had to be the handyman. But why would he come inside when she was clearly staying there? Why would he use her bathroom, eat her food, use her coffee mug? That evening, Olivia decided to set a test. She took a pencil and balanced it on top of her bedroom door, wedged in the gap between the door and the frame. If anyone opened that door, the pencil would fall. The next morning, she drove into Gatlinburg for a coffee run. She was only gone 30 minutes, but when she came back, the pencil was on the floor. Someone had opened her bedroom door while she was gone. Olivia's hands were shaking as she searched the entire cabin. No one was there, nothing was missing. But someone had been inside. Someone had been in her bedroom. She grabbed her phone and messaged Michael through the VRBO app. "Has Gary been to the cabin this week?" Michael responded within an hour. "No, Gary's schedule is every 2 weeks. He was there right before your check-in and won't be back until after you leave. Is something broken? Do you need a repair?" Olivia stared at the message, fear creeping through her chest. If Gary hadn't been there, who had? She responded, "No, nothing broken, just wondering." But she wasn't fine. Someone with a key had been entering the cabin while she was out, multiple times, going through her things, using her bathroom, drinking her coffee. That night, Olivia set up her phone to record while she took a shower. She propped it on the bathroom counter, camera facing the door, and hit record. After her shower, she reviewed the footage. At 6:47 p.m., a shadow passed by the gap under the bathroom door. Someone had been in the cabin, walking past the bathroom. While she was in the shower, Olivia felt like she was going to be sick. She grabbed her car keys, ready to leave immediately. But then, she thought about her laptop, still in the bedroom. It had all her work files, personal information, photos, everything. She couldn't leave it if someone had been accessing the cabin. She made a decision. She would stay one more night, but she would set up her phone to record the bedroom overnight. And she would wedge the desk chair under the door handle so no one could get in. At 10 p.m., she set everything up. Phone recording from the dresser, angled at the door, chair wedged tightly under the handle, pepper spray on the nightstand. She climbed into bed, fully dressed, shoes on, ready to run if she had to. She didn't expect to sleep, but exhaustion finally pulled her under around midnight. At 3:17 a.m., she woke to the sound of the chair scraping against the floor. Someone was pushing the bedroom door open, pushing against the chair. Olivia lay frozen in bed, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might explode. In the darkness, she could see the door slowly opening, inch by inch, as whoever was on the other side pushed against the resistance of the chair. The door opened just wide enough for a person to slip through, and a man stepped into her bedroom. He was maybe late 40s, wearing maintenance-style clothing, work pants, and a shirt with a name patch she couldn't read in the dark. He was carrying a toolbox. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Olivia in the bed, the man standing in the doorway, neither moving. Then the man spoke, his voice calm, casual, like this was completely normal. "You weren't supposed to be awake." Olivia's hand shot out and grabbed the pepper spray. She aimed it at him, her voice shaking. "Get out. Now. I've called the police." She hadn't, but he didn't know that. The man didn't move. "No, you haven't. There's no cell service up here, and I disconnected the landline 2 days ago." Olivia's blood turned to ice. He was right. She had tried to use her phone earlier that day and noticed she had no signal. She'd assumed it was just the mountains, but he'd disconnected the landline. He'd planned this. The man continued, his tone still disturbingly calm. "I've been taking care of this cabin for 3 years, all the renters. I make sure everything runs smoothly." "Michael said Gary maintains the property," Olivia managed to say. "Are you Gary?" The man actually laughed. "Gary doesn't exist. Michael made him up so renters wouldn't worry about maintenance. I just help out." He set down the toolbox and opened it. Olivia expected to see tools. Instead, she saw photographs. Hundreds of them, printed photos, stacked inside. The man started pulling them out, laying them on the dresser, like he was showing off a collection he was proud of. They were photos of people, different people, in this cabin, sleeping, cooking, sitting in the hot tub, getting dressed, all taken without their knowledge. And then Olivia saw herself, photo after photo of her, asleep in this bed, making breakfast in the kitchen, sitting on the deck with her laptop, in the hot tub at night. She was going to be sick. The man spoke again. "I keep memories of everyone who stays here. You're my favorite so far. So quiet, so peaceful. You barely make any noise." Olivia realized with horror. Hidden cameras. There had to be cameras in the cabin. That's how he knew when she was gone. That's how he'd been watching her. "I was just coming to check on you," the man said. "Make sure you're comfortable. That's all I do. I take care of guests." Olivia's mind was racing. She was in the mountains, no cell service, landline cut, and this man was between her and the door. She had to think. She forced herself to calm her breathing, to speak steadily. You startled me. I didn't know about this arrangement. With the checking on guests." The man's posture relaxed slightly. I scared you. I'm sorry. I should have introduced myself earlier. I like to be discreet. Olivia nodded, forcing what she hoped looked like an understanding smile. I get it. You're just doing your job. Exactly, the man said, visibly relieved. I'll go. Let you sleep. But I'll see you tomorrow. Every cell in Olivia's body was screaming, but she nodded. Sure. Tomorrow. The man picked up his toolbox, carefully placing the photos back inside. He backed toward the door, giving her one more smile. Sleep well, Olivia. He knew her name. Of course he did. The man left the bedroom, pulling the door closed behind him. Olivia heard him walk through the cabin. The front door opened and closed. She waited, counting to 60 in her head. Then she exploded into action. She grabbed her phone, her keys, her purse. That was it. Everything else could be replaced. She ran from the bedroom, through the cabin, threw open the front door. Her car was in the driveway. She sprinted to it, jumped in, locked the doors, and started the engine. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely turn the key. But the engine roared to life. She floored it down the mountain road, not caring about speed limits, not caring about the dark curves. She just drove. 20 minutes later, when her phone finally got a signal, she pulled over and called 911. The police raided the cabin at dawn. What they found made Olivia's nightmare even worse. 4 hidden cameras. One in the bedroom, one in the bathroom, one in the living room, one on the deck near the hot tub. All wireless, all feeding to a remote location. The man wasn't a property handyman. His name was Russell Pike, and he was a registered sex offender from North Carolina with active warrants in 3 states. He'd discovered the cabin's lockbox code system somehow, maybe watching from the woods as guests checked in, and had been accessing the property between rentals for 8 months. Police found SD cards with footage of 12 different renters. Russell had created detailed profiles on each one, documenting their habits, schedules, routines. Olivia's profile was the most extensive. He'd noted what time she showered, what she ate for breakfast, how long her hikes usually lasted when she used the hot tub. And at the bottom of her profile, a note that made Olivia's skin crawl. Week 3 is when I'll make contact. She'll be comfortable by then. She'll trust the routine. If Olivia hadn't discovered him when she did, she would have been there for week 3. Russell was arrested at a motel 30 miles away. He'd gone back there after leaving the cabin, apparently believing Olivia had bought his story about checking on guests. Michael, the property owner, was horrified. His Gary the handyman was a real person he'd hired. But Gary had quit 8 months ago. Michael had been meaning to update the cabin binder, but never got around to it. Russell had apparently been reading online reviews to figure out when the cabin was occupied and had exploited the cover story. The cabin was sold immediately. Michael couldn't deal with what had happened there. Russell was convicted and sentenced to 15 years. Olivia testified at his trial. She had to watch footage from the hidden cameras, had to see herself being watched, catalogued, studied. It was one of the hardest things she's ever done. I still can't stay in hotels or Airbnbs, Olivia told me. I check every room obsessively. I look for cameras. I test locks multiple times. And even then, I barely sleep. I feel like I'm always being watched. Because for 12 days, I was. And I never knew until he wanted me to know. She paused, then added quietly. The worst part is thinking about all those other renters. 12 people over 8 months. How many of them felt like something was off, but convinced themselves they were imagining it? How many of them showered, changed clothes, slept, all while he was watching? And they still don't know, because the police couldn't track them all down. Some had booked under company names or used VPNOs. So there are people out there who have no idea they were violated. Olivia lives in a small apartment now, ground floor, bars on the windows. She has 3 locks on her door. She never opens her curtains, even during the day. I used to love the mountains, she said. I used to think isolation was peaceful. Now I know better. Isolation makes you vulnerable. And there are people who look for that. People who watch, who wait, who know that when you're alone, no one can hear you scream.